what a great day to be here in Athens, Ohio. Come on, yeah, this is fantastic. I have a message for you guys. The way to fight lies is with the truth. That's why I am so proud to be here introducing Ted Strickland.
Let's hear it for Sarah. Hi, Athens.
Hi, Ted.
A beautiful, beautiful day in one of the most beautiful spots on the face of God's earth. It's wonderful to be back in Athens, Ohio. It's great to have President Bill Clinton here with us today. Athens has been really good to Bill Clinton, and Athens is going to be really good to Hillary Clinton. And Athens has been really good to Ted Strickland, and I want to thank you for that. Yes, but Athens will make up the difference, my brother. Next president, Hillary Clinton. She's been here in Athens so many times. She understands what life is like in the places that we care about. These Appalachian communities that are so much in need of someone like Hillary Clinton to continue the efforts that Barack Obama has put forth to make our societies, our country, our state, our nation, and the world a better place in which to live. The first woman president of the United States, that's going to be historic. But there's a lot of historic things that have happened right here in Athens, Ohio. Back in 1964, Lyndon Baines Johnson came to this site to announce the Great Society. And I want to share with you this morning just a quote from his wonderful speech. He said, "Let your young hearts, armed with new weapons, join an old battle, a battle against ancient enemies, the enemies of poverty and disease, illiteracy, and strife. With your courage and compassion and your desire, we will build a great society." Now that great society is in the process of being built. A lot was done during the days of Lyndon Baines Johnson, and we saw so many wonderful programs put in place that our Republican friends would love to repeal. And so we are engaged in a great battle today in this country. And when Hillary Clinton becomes president, she's going to need a Senate that will help her enact progressive programs to move Ohio and America forward. And so I want to be your senator, and let me to explain to you the differences between Ted Strickland and Rob Portman. They are as different as day is from night. He's not a bad human being, but I just disagree with him on every serious issue facing us. The student debt in America today is estimated to be $1.3 to $1.4 trillion. And a lot of that debt is being carried with high interest rates. And Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, Sherrod Brown and others have wanted students to be able to refinance that great debt at a lower interest rate. And Rob Portman has said no. Why would Rob Portman choose the big banks over you? It's because he always chooses the special interests over the people of Ohio. When he was George Bush's budget director, he advocated the privatization of Social Security. He actually voted to turn Medicare into a voucher program, my friends. Just let the seniors have a bit of money. Tell them to go out and negotiate with the big, powerful insurance companies. I don't think that's a very good idea. Senator Portman has said that the climate may be changing, but he's unwilling to say that human activity is largely responsible for climate change. Our climate is changing. This is an existential threat to the future of our world. I believe in Mother Nature. I think Mother Nature is going to be okay in the long run. I just want to make sure that human beings are part of that long run. And if we don't get serious about the environment and about climate change, we are in deep deep trouble. Then we talk about women's issues. I thought that Roe v. Wade was settled law. But not as far as Rob Portman is concerned. He wants to overturn Roe v. Wade. We all know the wonderful benefits that Planned Parenthood provides here in southeastern Ohio and across the state. I'm a huge supporter of Planned Parenthood. Rob Portman has voted to defund Planned Parenthood. That's a big difference. What about equal pay for equal work? Rob Portman has voted 5 times against pay equity for women. Shame on Rob Portman. What about the minimum wage? I tried to live on the minimum wage just for 1 week. I found the dollar menu at McDonald's. I got a loaf of bread and ate a lot of peanut butter and bread. On the 5th day, I got a call from my great nephew. I was in Washington at the time. He said, I'm in town for 3 days of training because they're sending me to Afghanistan. And I decided to take him out to dinner. I broke my minimum wage challenge. And then I thought, how many other people, moms or dads, brothers, sisters, uncles, they have a loved one that is going to a dangerous place in defense of this country, and they couldn't even afford to take their loved one out to dinner before they left. My friends, the people in Washington live in a big bubble. They have no idea what life is like. Now, I calculated how much money Senator Portman made per hour in 2015. I took his Senate salary and I took his investment income as reported on his financial statement, and I calculated it on a 40-hour work week, and I came up with Rob Portman making approximately $333.67 per hour. And he has voted against allowing a working person to have a minimum wage of only $10.10 an hour. What that says to me is Rob Portman has no idea what life is like for most people in this country. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He's a wealthy guy. There's nothing wrong with wealth. But the problem with Rob Portman is that he has spent his entire political life looking out for people who are like him, people who are already wealthy. I want to go to Washington and I want to fight for people like you, struggling students, struggling moms and dads, struggling families who simply want an opportunity in this life. Now let me end my remarks by saying a few words about Donald Trump. And as our great president says, don't boo, vote. Donald Trump says I'm all 100% in for Rob Portman, and he's in 100% for me. Well, can I remind you that when you sleep with dogs, you are in danger of getting fleas. And Rob Portman, who is so ashamed of Donald Trump that he won't stand on a platform with him, continues to say that Donald Trump should be the president of the United States of America. What kind of person would put his own political well-being ahead of the well-being of our country? But that's what Rob Portman is doing. Donald Trump has mocked a person with physical disabilities. And he just recently mocked Hillary Clinton for her illness while she had pneumonia. What kind of person who seeks to be the president would stand before a crowd like this and mock a disabled person? What kind of heart would they have? What kind of conscience would they have? You know, he was referring to John McCain when he said he respected people who weren't captured. But when I think of a prisoner of war, I think of Herman Zerger from Monroe County. Herman is well into his 80s today. He tells me the first time he ever voted in his life, he was in a foxhole during World War II. And a runner brought the ballots by to let the soldiers in the foxhole cast their ballots. He voted for FDR. First time he ever voted and hasn't missed a vote since. But he was later captured and he was held for months as a prisoner of war. I'm offended that someone like Donald Trump would indicate that someone like Herman Zerger is not a hero. He's called women pigs. He says wages are too high. He has engaged in behavior that is beneath just a decent human being, let alone someone who would be the President of the United States of America. And he is Rob Portman's candidate for president. Think of that. So when you go vote, I want you to vote for Hillary. It's going to be a historic vote. You're going to save this country from the likes of Donald Trump. And when you vote, and you come to that Senate seat, I hope you vote for Ted Strickland. When I was a congressman and had the great privilege of representing this wonderful community in the House of Representatives, they always said that when Athens votes, Ted wins. So this year, when Athens votes, Hillary's going to win, and Ted is going to win, and we are going to save this country from the anger, the divisiveness, the intolerance, the bigotry, the hatred of the Donald Trumps, and we're going to save America for the future. The future.
Hello, Bobcats. My name is Bailey Williams. I'm a freshman here. I am from Troy, Ohio, and I'm currently pursuing a double major in political science and economics as a member of the Templeton Scholars Program. This semester, I am volunteering my time with the Ohio Together campaign, where we are working tirelessly to get Democrats up and down the ticket elected on November 8th. As I'm sure a lot of people in this crowd did this past March, I also voted for Senator Bernie Sanders' as primary. I was drawn to his message of free public college, tackling income inequality, and making sure those at the top pay their fair share in taxes. But this November, I am very excited to be able to vote for the first female president of the United States. Why have I decided to vote for Secretary Clinton, you might ask? Why am I not voting for a third-party candidate or simply not voting at all?
We tried it.
Well, because this election is too important to sit on the sidelines or vote third party. Yeah, I can name a million reasons why you should vote against Trump, but anybody in their sleep could do that. Instead of voting against Trump, I am voting for Secretary Clinton, and here's why. My father is a city electrician as well as a union member, and my mother is a nurse. They both worked hard middle-class jobs to be able to send my older brothers and I to college, and are still working hard to make sure my younger brothers have the same opportunity. Living paycheck to paycheck isn't easy, and I saw as they sometimes struggle between putting food on the table and paying the water bill. We've had the electricity shut off on us before because the bill was due before the next payday and we couldn't pay it. We did our homework in the dark, only aided by candlelight, and we hoped our alarms on our phones would go off the next morning so we could get up and get ready for school and work on time. It was through these hard and sometimes embarrassing times that have made me into the person I am today and why I'm voting for Secretary Clinton on November 8th. Hillary Clinton is the only candidate in this race who will look out for middle-class families like mine and make sure college is affordable for everybody and that education is not just a luxury for the rich. That is the biggest reason Secretary Clinton can count on my vote on November 8th. We cannot allow Donald Trump to assume the White House and eliminate all the progress we've seen over the past 7.5 years. This is the time to vote for the future of America. Ask yourself this question: do you want to see the progress we've made under President Obama expanded on, or do you want to see more of what caused a Great Recession? It's a no-brainer. It's time to rally behind Secretary Clinton and make sure she becomes the 45th President of the United States. And we can do that very thing by making sure Ohio votes blue this November. I know I'm not the reason all of you have came out on a Tuesday morning. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Hillary's husband, former President Bill Clinton.
First of all, let's give Bailey Williams another hand. He did a good job. Thank you. I am very glad to be back here. I actually came to Athens and to OU when I was running for president back in the dark ages, before most of you could vote and many of you were born. I'm really glad to be back. I want to thank all the people who welcome me here and those who are supporting Hillary, including my longtime friend, Governor Ted Strickland, who was a congressman when I was president and later helped me deal with the challenge of world hunger when he was governor in the middle of the worst recession since the Great Depression. Ohio led the region in job growth. He's one of the ablest public servants I ever met, and I wish him well. I want to thank Mayor Patterson for welcoming me to Athens, County Democratic Chair John Hastley. Thank you, President Rodney McDavis and the family of OU for welcoming me to this gorgeous, gorgeous campus. Representative Debbie Phillips, thank you, and candidates for Congress, Scott Warden, for legislature, Sarah Grace, thanks for being here, and to our local organizers who talked to Sean Murphy and Emma Krause, thank you. I also want to thank David and D.G. Wilhelm, who are here. They were integral parts of my 1992 campaign. I couldn't have won without either one of them. David was my campaign manager, later the chairman of the Democratic Party, and they still look exactly as they did then, unlike me. This has been a crazy election. Would you agree with that? And I'm not very well suited for it because I'm a happy grandfather. It's easy for me to remember. I'm supposed to tell you that October the 11th is the last day you have to register to vote or bring anybody else to vote. And that early voting starts October 12th. I can remember that because October 11th is also my 41st wedding anniversary. So I grew up in a very contentious time. I was born in Arkansas at the end of World War II, when our income was only about half the national average. I was, in other words, a product of the people who were supposed to be Hillary's opponents' political base. White, non-college educated, working class people who were just fed up, hadn't had a raise in 15 years, don't like immigration, don't trust the federal government, hate our trade policy. Hillary's opponent is just about the best I ever saw at rubbing salt in open wounds. I know I don't pay taxes, but I rub salt in wounds. I know I didn't pay my contractors or other people I worked with, but I'm rubbing salt in your wounds. And I know that wait. I agree. If I had sent millions of your people to prison, or she had, that would be good. Hillary didn't vote for the '94 crime bill, even though Senator Sanders did. And neither one of them were trying to send millions of your people to prison because there were fewer than 10% of our entire prison population are in the federal prison system. And she was the first person in this campaign who said we ought to do something to change the incarceration policies and to reduce. Well, facts are difficult there. You ought to think about it. If you're really upset, that means you're also upset that we had a 25-year low in the crime rate, a 33-year low in the murder rate, and listen to this, a 67-year low in the rate of people being killed by illegal gun violence. I'm pretty proud of that, and I think that it's okay to hold people accountable for their record, but you need to paint the whole picture. Here's what I want to tell you. I want to do something different today. I want to talk about why you should be for Hillary and why you should be for yourselves and why you ought to be optimistic about the future. And I believe that we're making a terrible mistake just spending all of our time biting each other's head off, because I believe America is on the verge of being able to grow together with a 21st century version of broadly shared prosperity, increasing upward mobility, increasing income, decreasing inequality. That's what I believe. 10 years from now, people will look back on this period and they will give President Obama much better grades on the economy than many do now. They will see this financial crash, which he had nothing to do with, had a very long tail. A lot of the anxiety people feel starts with the fact that there are still a lot of people who, after inflation, are living on the same income they were living on the day I left office. All of their costs have gone up. That'd build road rage. But we just finished our 79th month of job growth, the longest in our history, and a better record than any other big economy in the world. Last year, personal income went up 5%, which is a lot in 1 year, and the biggest we've had in decades. And for the first time in 15 years, it was broadly shared prosperity with the highest percentage incomes in the bottom 80% of earners, not in the top 1%. For the first time. I get that people don't feel that yet. I'm just telling you what the facts show. The point is, we are just this close to being able to rise together. And that's what this election ought to be about. Stronger together means, do you believe the economy grows better if we share the prosperity? Stronger together means, do you believe we live better if we have an inclusive society and we embrace our diversity instead of drive a stake in the heart of it? That we will be more secure in a world where everybody's borders look more like nets than walls, and the social media can penetrate any wall. Do you believe we'll be better if there's all hands on deck trying to build a safer America? So we should approach the future with bridges, not walls. That's what this is about. Do you believe we're better off with anger or answers? Do you believe we're better off with resentment or empowerment? Do you believe we're better off embracing the unity of our common humanity or continuing to slice and dice the electorate? We're outperforming every other big economy in the world. We have the best assets for the 21st century economy of any country on earth. We have the youngest, most diverse workforce. We have the best system of higher education and training. We just need to make college affordable, the debt repayable, and we need to redignify skills training for people who don't need a 4-year university degree to get a middle-class life. We rank first or second in the world in every survey, and our ability to generate electricity from the sun and the wind. If we maximize our clean energy potential, within 10 years, electricity could be virtually free everywhere, and we can manufacture everything we want in America. Because the power force, we can more than feed ourselves in a world where the population is growing. Farmers in Ohio will make more money in the next decade, not less, because the world will need more food. We have the best science and technology base in the world. And if we hold on to our digital advantages and extend them to every place, then every American who lives even in very remote areas will be able to start their own business and do better. We should not be deciding the election based on who does the best job of rubbing salt in our wounds and dividing us and making us angry instead of giving us answers, of aggravating our resentments instead of giving empowerment. The challenges we have are absolutely meetable. There are clear, affordable, achievable rather straightforward responses. Our biggest problems are political gridlock, the dominance of anger, division, and all this bad climate, and troubles around the world. Here's what would grow the economy. While interest rates are still lower than inflation, we should have a major, and I mean major, infrastructure program. That's Hillary's #1 economic priority. Not just better roads and bridges and ports and airports. I was in Flint, Michigan yesterday. It is nowhere near the only city in America where kids have elevated lead levels in their blood because of rusty water pipes. If we tore up all those water pipes and laid down new ones, 100% of the jobs would be good jobs in America doing it, and we could give every child in this country a healthy future. Tomorrow morning, there will be 5 million children in American schools who will get homework assignments that require them to access the internet, and they can't do it. If we had universal affordable broadband, it would lift the economic prospects of a lot of small towns and rural areas and economically isolated urban areas that aren't there now. That's part of our infrastructure program too. Second thing we need to do is to recognize that we're not making enough startups. There aren't enough new business startups. 2/3 of the new jobs created in this country in the last 20 years have come from small businesses. When I had the honor to serve, there was not a single year when we were not in the top 5 countries in the world in small business startups. We are not in the top 10 today. So Hillary has proposed a regulatory change, and it's different from what her opponent wants to do. He wants to get rid of the Dodd-Frank law, which President Obama signed and which will keep Wall Street from wrecking Main Street again. It's a good law. We don't want Wall Street to wreck Main Street again. But a lot of bankers feel compelled not to make as many small business loans as before. They think it's too costly. Go talk to people here. If it costs you as much to make an $80,000 loan as to make an $8 million or an $80 million loan, you were running a bank, you wouldn't make as many $80,000 loans. That's really bad news for young millennials. So Hillary has offered a plan to make it easier for people to get small business loans at regular rates and not to be crippled by the bad credit rating of a college debt, so that we can get the business engine going again. The third thing we need is something that 2 Ohioans, Senator Sherrod Brown and Congressman Tim Ryan, have led the way on, which is to bring back modern manufacturing to the United States. The major costs in manufacturing are not labor anymore. It's materials, transportation, and energy. You can pay people really high wages if you can control these other costs. So a combination of an aggressive move to clean energy, Hillary wants to put up 500 million solar panels in the next 4 years, and the fact that this is the biggest market in the world means we should be bringing back manufacturing jobs. You would never know it listening to the other side in this election, but 900,000 manufacturing jobs have been brought back to America since President Obama took office. We can do more. You should all be for that, no matter what you want to do for a living, because every manufacturing job creates 2.5 other jobs in the economy. This is what we ought to be talking about in this election. We are so close to being able to rise together again. There are some problems. What do we know about trade? We know if you're 5% of the world's population and you want to have more than 20% of its economy, you have to sell something to somebody else. We know that trade deals, however, even if they're well written, don't work unless A, they're enforced. Enforcement dropped 70% when I left office. Now we know that even if you enforce the trade deals, people can impose barriers not covered by them, so-called non-tariff barriers, and they can fool with the currency. We've learned all that, which is why it's much harder to enforce multinational trade deals than it is one-on-one. Well, Hillary's talked a lot about that, how we can have a permanent enforcement mechanism so that it won't change from administration to administration, deal with these currency issues, deal with the non-tariff barriers. We have to deal with a huge problem represented by what Wells Fargo did. Been following that? That really made me sad because Wells Fargo, of all the big banks, had the best record in not taking us off the ledge in the subprime mortgage crisis. And it turned out all along they were making their extra money by signing all of you up for accounts that you didn't know you were in and having to pay the fee. And then punishing their own employees who said, this is crazy, don't do this. The other good example of that is Carrier Air Conditioning in Indiana. They announced they were going to move 2,100 jobs to Mexico. Remember? Mr. Trump said it's all because of NAFTA. That's not what was going on at all. Carrier in Indiana made furnaces. They were making $2.9 billion a year in that division. And the union was highly productive, so their profit margins were going up every year. And they still wanted to shut the plant down and move it to Mexico to save $65 million a year out of a $2.9 billion profit. This is classic what's wrong with America today. It's called quarterly capitalism. It's not what happens on Wall Street, it's the mentality of Wall Street infecting Main Street. It is letting the finance tail wag the economic dog. Lucky for us, in the Carrier case, someone walked right out of the board meeting and committed the truth. They said, well, we're doing great, but we have these big activist shareholders. That's a sanitized term. They used to call them raiders, who buy stock and demand that they get their money out in a year and a day. They want a big profit in a year and a day because that's when the capital gains tax goes down. And then they make sure that the presidents of the company are paid based on the stock prices. So everybody's running a company based on what happens to the stock price in a year instead of what happens to the company and its products and its customers and its employees and the communities they're a part over any 5 to 7 year period. And they're doing this in spite of the fact that all economic surveys show that companies that operate on a 5 to 7 year time horizon over the long run make more money, are more profitable. Turns out being a good employer, being good to your community, and being good to your customers is better than being good to your corporate raiders and your CEO paying by the stock. What Hillary proposes to do is to make that harder. Look, if somebody's losing money, that's a different story, right? Somebody's losing money and they're going to go under anyway. We pat them on the back, we thank them for employing our people, we wish them well, and we hope they find some place they can make money. But if they're making money and they do this, and if their profit margins are increasing, then Hillary said they ought to have to give back every last red cent they ever got from the state, the local, or the federal government. And we ought to put that in the infrastructure program. We ought to stop getting that big tax cut in a year and a day. We ought to do whatever we have to do to make it more attractive to stay in America. It's not anti-business because she proposes, she says to corporations, look, you want to cut your taxes? Here's how you can do it. Fairly share your profits with your employees, I'll give you a big tax credit. Spend some money to retrain your employees to keep their productivity and their marketability up, you can get a tax credit. Invest in places that have been left out and left behind. Invest in Appalachia, invest in inner cities, invest in small towns in rural America. I'll cut your taxes. Go back to being part of America. It turns out it's good business. You can look all over the country. The companies that are unionized are more likely to do these things. But there are some non-union companies that share profits, that train their employees to do this. Everybody would be eligible. We just want, in America, a fair deal. We're the best positioned country in the world for the 21st century. That's the economic plan. Then everybody's got to be able to take advantage of it, which means you got to be able to afford to go to college, afford to get out, manage the debt if you already have it, and have access to real serious skill training that'll give you a middle-class job even if you don't have a 4-year degree. So what's her plan? This is the most important thing that you may not know that came out of the Democratic Convention. She and Bernie Sanders put their two college plans together and came up with a better plan than either one had before. Free tuition at any public college for families with an income of $125,000 or less. That's 85% of us. Debt-free graduation for everybody by work-study grants and other supports. Free tuition for everybody at two-year institutions. And if you already have debt, let people refinance. How crazy is it that a college loan is the only debt you can't refinance? It's crazy. 20 million young Americans would save an average of more than $2,000 apiece if they could all refinance their loans. Give people the option of converting what they owe into a debt instrument that looks like a home mortgage where you limit what you pay to a low fixed percentage of your after-tax income. If you owed the national average, which today is about $30,000, you'd probably be limited to paying 4 or 5% of your after-tax income. If you owed $200,000 because you went to medical school on debt, you still couldn't be required to pay more than 10% of your after-tax monthly income. And if you hadn't paid it off in 20 years, the rest is forgiven. If you do public service work and you pay it off, it's done after 10 years. If you do a few years in AmeriCorps, you can get rid of it altogether. There would be help not just for public colleges, but for private ones that had modest tuition and high graduation rates. Look, we got to take care of this. It's really important, not just for you, but for everybody else. To make college debt free for everybody, to make it tuition free for 85% of us who come from families with incomes of $125,000 or less. She's the only person you can vote for who's got a plan. There is no plan on the other side. There are other things we have to do too. Hillary wants to change federal education policy in important ways. She thinks there should be some testing to monitor progress through school, but she thinks that's been overdone when all the evidence shows that the most important thing, no matter what zip code you live on, is whether your teacher's getting better, your principal's getting better, and the families are involved in the life of the school, and that's what she wants to fund. She believes that it's important to help families who still have not been able to find affordable insurance. The Affordable Health Care Act did a world of good, and the 50-something efforts to repeal it that the Republicans have staged were a terrible mistake. We, for the first time in our history at least, are providing insurance to more than 90% of our people. But there is a group of people, mostly small business owners and employees, who make just a little too much money to qualify for Medicaid expansion or for the tax incentives, who can't get affordable health insurance premiums in a lot of places. And the reason is they're not in big pools. I mean, it's not like they work for Safeway or General Motors or you name it, right? So they have no bargaining power. So she has proposed to take the next step in this and do what the president tried to do the first time, and she supported, which is to allow people 55 and over to buy into Medicare and allow others to have a public option that looks like the expansion of Medicaid they can afford. It's the right thing to do. Now, if you do all this, we still have to figure out, are we going to live together or not? We clearly need, as I said to the young man who was talking at me at the beginning, Hillary was the first candidate to say, look, we've overdone this incarceration thing. We got too many people serving too long in prisons for nonviolent offenses and then having their lives wrecked when they get out because nobody will hire them because they didn't get education or training in school, and they're discriminated against because they were once in prison. She wants to invest more in education and training, ban the box they can check on an employment application that they've been in prison, and help people start again. She wants reforms in police departments all over the country where people wear cameras, get better training, and don't have anything like the likelihood that now exists that somebody's going to get shot who's not armed. She knows, but she also knows that we would all be in deep trouble given the level of violence in America today and this epidemic of prescription drugs and heroin if all the police disappeared from our streets. We need them. We need police reform, and we need the police, good ones, who will protect us and make us safe and give us a better future. When I was president, Vice President Biden was the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and he sponsored the crime bill that we have now been pilloried for because it did have too long a sentences in it. But it did give us a 67-year low in illegal homicides and a 33-year low in murder and a 25-year low in crime. And there were 100,000 police in it, and it was popular across all racial and income groups, that police plan. Because it turned out that the more secure the police were and the more they could walk the street and know their neighbors, the less likely these kinds of incidents that we've been treated to over the last 2 years were to happen. So Hillary says, look, we cannot afford to have any more families terrified every time their young sons walk outside the door after dark without regard to race. We can't afford that. There's a real potential for bipartisan movement to lower the prison population, people that shouldn't be there now. There's a lot of Republicans for this, and President Obama's already announced he's not going to build any more private prisons to house federal inmates, because they have an economic incentive to keep people in prison. We need to pass an immigration reform bill that does not put anybody at the head of the line, but that recognizes what Ronald Reagan did when he signed the immigration reform bill, and George Bush would have done if we could have passed the immigration reform bill that Hillary voted for in 2007. We got all these people here, they're part of our economy, they're working, they're paying taxes, they're contributing to our future, there are children in our schools. It would cost $100 billion to do what our opponent says and send them home. That's before you get paying for the wall. And in many counties in America, it would cause a recession. So we need to reform the laws to legitimize the people who are here, who are obeying the law, paying taxes, willing to wait in the ordinary process to become citizens, because we have no idea how valuable our diversity is. Look at this crowd. What would this crowd have looked like 40 years ago? We got to stop fooling with this. I can tell you, having lost it, youth matters. If you're projecting the economic future of a country, the youth, the education level, and the diversity of the workforce are the best indicators of success in the 21st century. So I want to tell everybody, we need you without regard to your race or your religion. We need to go forward together. That's what stronger together means. If you listen to that debate, you know that she ought to be the commander-in-chief, that she's far better qualified to keep us safe and to build a future with bridges that cooperate with other people who have the same interests we do in maintaining safety and avoiding disaster. Because the social media is the source of so much conversion to violent activity today, you can build all the walls you want. We still have to have our fellow American who are Muslims helping us to identify potentially troubled people and to do something about them. We still need to listen to the police chiefs who told Hillary a month ago that the thing they needed most was more mental health facilities that were comprehensively available in every community. I'm just telling you, I would love to be your age. Now, but you've got to make these decisions. Like when her opponent says he wants to make America great again, that's like saying, I'll give you the economy we had 50 years ago. And I know you're disoriented by all this immigration and all these troubles in the world and the rise of all these social movements. various gay rights debates. So make me president, and I will give you the economy you had 50 years ago and move you back up on the social totem pole. That's the message, isn't it? Look, that's like me saying I'd like to be 20 again. 50 years ago, that's what I was. And I actually would like to be 20 again. Because I'd like to see what's going to happen. I think we're entering the period of biggest discovery and advance maybe that we've ever had in our history. But, because I got a better candidate. President Obama said because of the unique combination of international and domestic challenges, Hillary was better qualified to be president than he or I was. He was telling the truth and then some. I would like to be 20 again, but I would not vote for somebody who promised to make me 20 again. That's what people are being asked to do here. I'll give you the economy you had 50 years ago, and I'll move you up on the social totem pole. Keep in mind, I grew up in Hillary's opponent's apparent base. And I almost wept yesterday. I was in Michigan, and an African-American bishop came up to me, and he said, I am the grandson of Luther Washington of Hope, Arkansas. That's a little town I was born in. He said, my grandfather loved your grandfather like a brother. He was a poor working man, and your grandfather had a little store. And there were no food stamps. There was no nothing. And your grandfather didn't have much more money than he did. He said, every time my grandfather came in the store and he needed food for his children and he didn't have any money in his pocket, your grandfather gave him the food, said, take whatever you need and come back when you can and pay me. And that's what they did. And I couldn't breathe. I was raised to believe we should share the future, that everybody who's working hard and trying deserves to be treated with dignity. My granddaddy didn't have much education. He was one of the smartest, best men I ever knew. And when he died, yeah, there were still some people on this list that owed him for food. But he died a happy man because he thought he was supposed to share. Look, Hillary does not want to move anybody up on the social totem pole. She wants to tear the dadgum pole down so we can all go forward together. That's what we want to do. So for all of you, you think about Ohio. It's one of the most economically and socially diverse places in America. It is geographically diverse. I'm superstitious and I love going through the Ohio countryside now because it looks like you're going to have a good corn crop. And when I ran for president, you had the best darn corn crop I ever saw. And I said, I believe we're going to win. I think optimism will trump pessimism when people walk through those streets. Don't pass up this chance. Don't let people pour acid down your throat. Don't let people tell you to be cynical. Don't let people tell you your vote doesn't matter. Don't let people tell you there are no consequences to the election. Don't let people imply that there's any such thing as a perfect candidate, but imply that there are no facts. It matters. In this last election, there are two different systems that check the accuracy of the statements the candidates made, beginning in the primary. Both of them said Hillary made the fewest errors and her opponent made the most. That's what they said. They don't work for anybody. You will never have a chance to vote for somebody who's literally devoted her entire life from the time she was in law school to trying to make life better for some other people. You will never have a chance to vote for somebody who has done more in and out of office to try to make life better for other people, especially for children, for families. You will never have a chance. To vote for somebody, I doubt, again, who has both been a United States Senator from a state that outside of New York City looks a lot like Ohio. upstate New York, and Secretary of State, who was, when she left office before her opponents started working on her, the most admired and most trusted figure in America. One big thing here is, and I want everybody to know how to think about this, the strongest supporters Hillary had are the people who grew up with her, who got all over America campaigning with her, the people who went to college with her, the people who worked with her in Arkansas, many of whom have gone all over the country and could barely afford the trip, but they paid their way to go tell people what they knew. The people she served in New York, the people that worked in the State Department. Then there are all these people, probably her second strongest supporters are the people who've had personal business dealings with her opponent. And then there are all these Republicans who made a living in national security, trying to keep you safe all these years. Dozens and dozens of them who said, I can't vote for him, and many of them endorsed her. USA Today made its first endorsement in history. They endorsed Hillary. They said, we had to do this. The Arizona Republican, the biggest newspaper in Arizona, founded in 1890, had never endorsed a Republican since 1890. It's 175 years they endorsed Hillary. The Cincinnati Enquirer has not endorsed a Republican, a Democrat I mean, since Woodrow Wilson ran for re-election. 100 years ago, they endorsed Hillary. The Dallas Morning News, often thought to be the premier conservative paper in America, the last time they endorsed a Democrat was Roosevelt in World War II. They said, you know, it may not be such a great idea to change presidents in the middle of World War II. I guess we'll be for Roosevelt. They endorsed Hillary. And so I ask you to do this for yourselves. Do this for your future. Take a flying leap these next 30 days and think about what we can do. Instead of pouring salt in everybody's wounds and acid down everybody's throat, think about what we can do. Think about what we can do to claim a future that can include everybody. We can all rise again. People ask me all the time, what are you most proud of about being president? I say, I'm most proud of the fact that the bottom 20% of workers increase their income in percentage terms more than the top 20%. That everybody did better under trickle down, under me than under trickle down. Investment and growing together is better than trickle down. So, when I'm mad, I want to go back to trickle down on steroids. You better not. You better not. Since 1981, since the dawn of trickle down, we've had 18 years of Democrats, 20, right? 20 and 6 of Republicans, 20 of Republicans, 16 years of Democrats. What's the job score? They had more years, 20, we had 16. And President Obama had an unfair handicap because he became president just a couple of months after the crash in September 2008 and had to eat all the job losses he had nothing to do with. So what's the job score? And the Republicans don't like government jobs. Let's just count private sector job score. Okay? Republicans, 15.9. 16, something like that. Democrats, 4 years less, eating the crash, 31.8. Don't stay home. Don't stay quiet. And don't spend all your time on the cheap, easy shots, even if you're on our side and you're taking it at him. The only thing that matters is what your life is going to be like. I just took 2 days off from the campaign and flew all the way to Israel to speak at the funeral of my friend Shimon Peres, former president, prime minister, who died at 93. And shortly before he died, he did an interview with Charlie Rose. Charlie Rose said, "What do you want your legacy to be?" And he smiled and he said, "I prefer to think more about tomorrow than yesterday." 93 years, that's how come he lived to be 93. Think about tomorrow. Claim your future. But I'm just telling you, I've done this for half my life now. Try to help people make a living, make a good income, have a better future. Answers work better than anger. Empowerments work better than resentment. Bridges work better than walls. And we're stronger together than we are cutting the living daylights out of each other. Go claim your future and elect Hillary president.
Are you aware of me? Whoop. Sorry, buddy. I just wanted to show how huge you are.